Hey, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Zweig Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and man, it is so good to be back in the saddle here. I'm excited to bring you some really great content on a regular basis, even though we are in different times. As I record this, we are in early April 2020 as we are dealing with this coronavirus pandemic. And we've had a couple of really good episodes to talk about how firms are dealing with the pandemic, how we are kind of approaching and embracing what I'd like to call the new normal. And today is a special day because I've asked the founder of Zweig Group, Mark Zweig himself, to come on the podcast and talk with us a little bit about just how a design firm in this day and age deals with a pandemic like we've never seen before, because I don't think there is a playbook for this. And so without further ado, Mark Zweig, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man, for an old man.
You're not that old. So you're only a decade older than me. So I don't want to hear about old age just yet. Maybe we could talk about that in another 10 years or so. But no, it's
Let
good
me
to
add an old man with a continually declining bank account right now.
yeah, I think all of our bank accounts are continually declining. So that's for sure. Well, at least we can't go out and spend any money. Although Amazon is still taking orders, unfortunately, and that's kind of the bane of my existence right now. So
Exactly. I hear
yeah,
you.
yeah. So well, good. It's good to have you back on the podcast. As you know, we resurrected the Zweig podcast, and I'm just excited. Even though we're in a very difficult and serious time right now, just to kind of talk with you about your take on things. You've seen this industry for almost 4 decades now, and that does date you, that statement.
It
But
is actually 4 decades.
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the reality is, you've never seen anything like this, and
No.
I'd be curious to know your thoughts. And I know that you have your fingers on the pulse of what's happening because you have a lot of friends that are leaders and owners in the space, and I'm sure you talked to a lot of people. You've probably talked some people off a ledge that were worried or concerned about what is what. But I'd be curious to get your thoughts on. Just currently where we are right now, and how your recommendation for leaders that need to see their firms through this difficult road.
Yeah, I am talking with a lot of people. I mean, one good aspect of this whole thing is you actually do have time to talk to people
Yeah,
because there's not much else you can do
right.
other than talk. But the truth of it is, I think there are a lot of things firms can do. And if you really start looking at this business, we are lucky in the sense that many of the companies in the AE business have significant backlogs and longer term projects and projects with government agencies and projects with large, you know, Fortune 1000 companies. And so, not all of the work is going away by any stretch of the imagination. Now, there are some sectors that are really being hit hard. One of the clients that I work with, who are some good friends of mine, they have a firm that serves the hotel market. I mean, that's a tough market to serve right now. There's no question they're going to take a hit in their workload, even though it's not all gone away either. So it really depends on the firm and what the situation is as far as the type of work they do. But most companies have experienced some kind of decline in workload and some projects put on hold. In some cases, it's a lot. In other cases, it's not so much. But I think the important thing right now, well, there's a lot of important things. I mean, the first thing I would know is, what are your costs? What are your real monthly costs? What's it going to take to break even? And get a really good revenue projection going forward, being very conservative, to try to figure out, with the resources you have, cash and credit, how many months can you go? And anything you can do to extend out that number of months that you can go with this reduced income level is a good thing. So, there are some sources of money out there. The PPP funds under the CARES Act can give some companies as much as $2 million, my understanding is. We've got the economic disaster recovery loans direct from the SBA. And then we've got here in Arkansas, we have a program called the Quick Action Loan Program. It's essentially a grant of up to 25,000. So you got to make sure you do all the things to get all the money that you can get at low interest rates or money that will be forgiven. And then the other thing you got to do is talk with your banks. I mean, my understanding is the SBA right now is doing things like extending out the terms on 7A loans, reducing interest rates. Banks are doing the same thing on a wide variety of loans that they have. So, you got to do everything you can to extend out that number of months that you can go before you're in trouble. And because this thing could be a long thing. And I think it's, we're not going to lose all of our work. And it's not, the market's not going to be a complete disaster. We're probably better than many other industries. I mean, I'd hate to be in the restaurant business today.
Yeah.
I'd hate to be in the retail car business today. I mean, I think that would be a horrible business. You're going to see some big changes there. But the AE business, we just need to pare our costs down and get all the cash and credit we can in one place. That's a start. I think the second thing, if you look at AE firms in particular, Randy, we have a problem in this business in that we don't usually act very quickly. Most of the time, these economic problems tend to creep up over time. So we've got a little more time to sort of get used to what we have to do to respond. It's a more gradual decline than what we just experienced over the last 4 weeks or so. But the fact is this, we've got to act much quicker in terms of dealing with things that we can deal with. And so, I've recommended to many companies that they implement across the board pay cuts, particularly for their top people, but maybe across the board for everybody. But, anytime the firm makes the money in the following month that it needs to make, they could pay that back.
Yeah.
There's no law that says I can't give you a 10% pay cut, but restore it next month, providing we make enough money to do so beyond our break-even point. So, I think you need to look at some of those things right now, whereas I'm not a big fan most of the time of those kinds of changes because the job market's not, it's not great. You have a lot less likelihood that your people are going to leave during this crisis and go to another company.
Yeah.
Much riskier for them, and the companies aren't hiring like they were. So, now's the time to do these things. Get that break-even point down. And then, beyond that, I mean, look, you and I both know you've been doing this a long time too. Most of these companies have too many principals that have retired on the job. And I mean, I just hate to say it, but I'm thinking about one company right now that I know of. It's got 11 partners, and believe me, half of them need to go. I mean, when I say they need to go, I mean they're not billing, they're not selling, and they're not managing anybody. They're just there, and they're taking out a disproportionate amount of money for what they contribute. And we just can't go on like that anymore. Maybe when we're all fat and we've got these huge profits that we've been making in this industry, and things just keep getting better and better, we can afford that kind of fat. But we can't do it now. We've got to confront everything, drive the break-even point down, extend out the months that we can survive until things turn around, and they will turn around.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I just took a page worth of notes, and I'm sure people listening to this is that information is going to be really helpful to them. It's a lot of the stuff that you're saying are things that at Zweig Group we've been saying for years when we do strategic plans, and the fact that you should take out when credit is available, you should take advantage of it.
Exactly.
And access that kind of money. I've heard you say that a
Yep.
million times. I've heard Jamie Claire Kaiser and Chad Kleinen say that, and so many others. I mean, that's always been the mantra. And nowadays, as you said, I mean, money is somewhat available. Even
Yeah.
even in the
Yep.
industry that you mentioned, you mentioned the car industry. I've seen more 0% interest 84-month loans than I've ever seen
Well,
before in my
they're doing,
life. So,
they're doing it because they're desperate. They're
oh,
not
I
going to
know,
sell
I
the
know.
cars right now. I mean, just think about the overhead. First off, they operate on a really slim margin in the first place, car
Right,
dealers do.
right.
And they got all that overhead from their locations, which are expensive and big, and all the people, and then all those vehicles floor planned. Oh, that would be terrible.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
going to see like the automakers will cut half their brands and half their products in the next year. I'll bet you anything.
yeah,
It's going to be a major reduction of offerings.
yeah.
But anyway, back on our industry, and I love talking about cars anytime we want to
I
talk
know
about.
that's right.
I mean, the other thing I think companies need to do is they need to get on the freaking phone. Their partners need to be talking to clients and potential clients all day long for 2 or 3 days out of every week. I mean, now is the time. Find out what your clients are doing, what their problems are, how they're responding to this situation, what their needs are, whether you can currently provide them or not. You know, really get in tune with those clients. And I think if you did that, if people would actually stay on the phone 8 or 10 hours a day, 2 or 3 days out of the week, the top people, they would learn so much and it would be so valuable. Everybody else they talk to, they can share some of what they're learning with. They'll be a resource, they'll form new relationships, they'll get new work, they'll figure out what their offerings really need to be, what services they need to provide to their markets. I mean, there's just so many benefits to it. It's not going to be business as usual where we all just sit back and somehow the leads come in excess of the amount of work that we can actually do, which has been the case for probably the last 8 or 10 years for most companies in this business. You got to get much more aggressive in your personal selling and get tuned in. And so that's the thing I would be doing. I would just be staying on the phone. And unfortunately, I'm afraid most of the people I know are not doing that yet, and they need to be doing it.
Yeah,
And the other thing I see design firms doing, and again, I'm going to be critical, but it's only out of a desire to help. Way too much social media on, here's our new logo to promote social distancing. You should be social distancing. Here's what it says about going out. I mean, not to say these things aren't important. I'm not saying I'm not going
yeah.
out without a mask on. I'm not going anywhere that I don't need to go. I'm social distancing.
Got my
Here's
mask
my
on.
workspace at home. Here's my dog. Here's my cat. Here's my cat on my computer in my workspace. Uh, you know, uh, uh, Here's the meal that we just prepared. Isn't it fantastic? Here's the trip we went on 2 years ago. Don't we wish we could do that again? I mean, get off of that stuff and start putting out some original information that shows your insight into the markets that you serve and give some helpful information to clients as to how to deal with their problems. I mean, honestly, it's driving me mad. It all looks the same. You just see it over and over and over again. Or here's some pretty pictures of projects we did 5 years ago. Let's act as if nothing's changed. I mean, that doesn't make any sense either, you know?
Yeah,
So they need to stop delegating their social media to 24-year-old marketing coordinators. And instead, the top people need to take that back under their wing, under their direction, even if they don't know how to use the tools that the younger people do know how to do. That's why they end up in the job, and start putting some good content out there. I'd be surveying customers, I'd be doing polls, I'd be talking to people every day. I guarantee you, yes, there will be a smaller market. It doesn't mean that you have to go down as an individual firm. If you kick up the selling activity right now and do some intelligent marketing, I think you could, and cut your costs, you'll be able to survive to another day and then be in a great position when everything turns around.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And I love the idea about just providing some helpful insight and some tips about how the marketplace that you serve as a design
Yes.
professional, you can give them insight and some ideas about ways that they can combat this, this current environment that we're in. So I think that's really important. And I like the other thing that you said about relationship building and getting out there and just getting on the phone. And it's not always with this idea that you have an ask, right? It's not like you have your hand out. Sometimes it's just
Right.
connecting with people just to make contact.
You understand that. I mean,
Yeah,
you've always
yeah,
been like that. And,
yeah,
the result of that is you've known people and maintained these relationships for a long time.
exactly.
And that's very, very important. And you learn from all those people. And then you don't need to divulge any confidences when you don't want to share any proprietary information, but you can
Right.
share plenty of information that's not with people that shows what the hell's going on out
Yeah.
there. Be a resource, be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts on. I know historically how you have viewed remote working, and now that we're fully involved in it, what are your thoughts about remote working as it presently stands? I mean, because it's now out of a necessity.
Sure.
The challenge that I see for our industry is that it's like Pandora's box. You've opened it up.
Yep.
Now it's going to be really difficult. And I'm sure there are firm leaders out there. Matter of fact, I know there are that
Mhm.
are really concerned about that because they're thinking, man, now 70% of my workforce is working from home now. And there's
Yeah.
probably at least 30 or 40 or maybe even 50% of these folks that are going to want to remain like that.
Or 100% is
Or
working.
100%, right. And
Yeah.
and the
Sure.
question that you have to ask is, well, A, have my revenues changed at all? Am I able to continue to put out the same amount of work I was putting out before? I mean, there are a
Yeah.
lot of factors that come into play, and I know you have evolved in your thinking, but I'd love for you to kind of share your thoughts about this and maybe
Well,
some advice that you would have for firm leaders when it comes to this area.
I'm not sure I have any great advice other than I will share an observation. Don't count on your productivity to be the same as it was when everybody was working in an office. And you already alluded to that. I mean, it's not going to be the same. You're going to see a 20-25% reduction of productivity, is my guess. I could be wrong, but I'm going to guess that. So many distractions at home. Okay. Some people will really embrace it and they'll do even better. But a lot of people are going to be very distracted, not put in an honest day's worth of work. And so it concerns me. You do lose a lot of the buzz and the communication that you would have when everybody's working in an office. So I do think prior to this, there may have been a trend you saw, at least in some of the high tech companies, of reversing
Yeah. Yeah.
this trend of working from home. So, but you're right, it's never going to be the same again. Companies are going to go back, they're going to need less office space in general. I wish I didn't own office and retail because neither one of those is going to be great. So we're going to need less office space. The only saving grace for office space may be that the office space we have is going to have to be a lot less dense. So we may have less people in it, but we'll have uh, more space per person after this thing is over. That could be the result of it. But I don't have the answer as to what that. It's going to be a challenge. There are going to be some people who want to continue to work like this. We'll have to have very good and clear ways to measure their productivity to decide whether or not that specific individual can work from home or not.
Yeah. And there's also been some silver linings in all of this that I guess we've experienced. I know you said you lost in your most recent Zweig letter article. You said you lost about 5 pounds, just
Yeah,
because you're getting into a little bit more of a regular habits of exercise and all this other good stuff. I think one of the things, and you could correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think this would be. There's never been a better time for firm leaders as well as for everybody else to encourage personal and professional development.
yes.
And I don't know what your thoughts are about that specifically.
You're right. I mean, this people have the time to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think you're absolutely right. I think smart people are going to say, hey, now here's my chance to learn something new.
Yeah.
I can tell you, my wife and I both become a heck of a lot better cooks through all this. But no, seriously, it's funny you say that because Yeah, I mean, I've seen her. She wants to subscribe to some program that a subscription learning program, so she can learn all kinds of obscure new stuff. I think if you're intelligent, this is a great time to figure out how to use that software. We certainly are using the collaboration tools a lot better than we ever did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
putting a strain on the IT infrastructure that these companies have.
Yeah.
But we are learning, and it is a good time to you know, do some self improvement. So yeah, there's a lot of good that's going to come out of it. People are spending time with their families that they never spent. You know, they're eating better because they're not eating out all those meals. They're exercising more. They're reflecting more on what they want to do with the rest of their lives. There's going to be some positive stuff that actually comes out of this. But, you know, on the other hand, we're not going to have a recession. When I hear people talk about a recession, honestly, it makes me laugh. We're going to have a depression. That's what
Yeah.
we're headed into. You'll see
Yeah.
30% plus unemployment. The next time the unemployment numbers come out, I'm going to make a prediction that it's 15 to 17%. Okay. And it's going to go to 30, 32% is what's going to happen. And, you know, we're not going to just bounce back immediately. I don't think it's got to be like the depression we had in the stock market crash back in 29, but was it 28 or
Two,
29?
2008.
No, I'm
2008.
talking 19.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, you mean the real one. Yeah.
The market
So,
crashing.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. That was 1929, the stock market
yeah.
crash. And yeah, that just changed everything.
We're not going to. I mean, I don't think it's going to be as you know. Although unemployment was actually lower then than it's going to be this time. But
Yeah.
I think a great deal of it depends on how much money the government, the federal government, pumps back into the economy. If they can keep the money flowing and everybody's not broke when things are clear again, then a lot of these businesses are going to bounce back quick. And, you know, as far as the AE business goes, again, most of the stuff that people do is on a longer time horizon than, you know, a month or
Yeah.
2 months out. And these needs aren't going away. We
No.
still need water systems. We need, I mean, we're going to have new needs.
Bridges. Our public
Yeah,
infrastructure is in, I wouldn't say tatters. That, but maybe that's too harsh of a word, but we need there our public infrastructure in this country is crumbling, and it takes design professionals to be able to help bring that back to restore order in that area. And so there's going to be
absolutely.
a lot of work in
I
that
mean,
space.
healthcare, I mean, everything's going to go through a revolution. We're going to be repurposing retail and office. We're going to be redesigning office. We're going to be redesigning factories. We're going to need bigger warehouse and distribution centers. And we're going to need a lot more hospitals and better designed health facilities of all kinds. I mean, there's just, you know, the needs aren't going to go away. They'll all
Yeah.
be there.
So, and what you mentioned something earlier about the, like certain industries that are going to really be hit hard. What is your what has your advice been to those industries about either pivoting or, figuring out other ways that they can provide value to their current client base, in this difficult time right now?
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good question. I mean, yes, you may need, and this may be an ideal time, um, you know, to add some people that have new market specialties that you don't currently have. I mean, if I was an architecture firm and I did retail and I did higher education, I might be thinking real hard about finding somebody who does multifamily residential and somebody who does healthcare uh, work quickly
Yeah.
because you know you can see where certain markets are going to go. You know, I mean, it's just you got to be smart, and now's the time. It may be a great opportunity to add some of these people that you might not be able to get otherwise. But yeah, you've got to be thinking about some diversification. On the other hand, I do think too you got to get on. You know, again, it's why you really need to be informed of what's going on with your clients
Yeah.
because a lot of facilities will be repurposed. Figure out how they're being repurposed, who is acquiring them or who is leasing them, and what you can do to be on the front end so you get the work to reposition the facilities that your marketplace clients have that are no longer useful. you know?
Hmm.
I think there's going to be some great opportunities there. I really do.
Yeah. What? And I'm
Move
curious.
fast.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what you think about kind of like the collaboration workspaces, kind of like the WeWork, even though they just had most of their funding pulled from them, that's
Yeah.
a whole different story. I still see value in that type of model moving forward, right? If we go to more of a remote workspace situation where, maybe I want to spin up an office in a certain community because of the work that's there, I don't now have to go and build this whole grandiose office. I can hire one or
Right.
two people that could be pivotal or vital to what I need, and then use a collaborative workspace to kind of develop something.
I mean, it may be, it may continue to be a trend in the future. I know my wife is already wanting to look into possibly repositioning some space we have for that exact purpose. So
Yeah.
I think sure, it's hard to say. I mean, honestly, it's really hard to say whether that's going to be something people want or they just don't want it. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe, the other alternative is virtual meetings and in no office space. I just don't know,
I
you
still
know?
think there's this aspect about it though when you think about just the human interaction. I did a training at a WeWork space in Boston early last month before all the stuff hit the fan, and it was right before they closed things down in Boston significantly. But I was still blown away by how slow things were in Boston of all places, and because you've lived there. But I
Mhm.
looked at this WeWork space, and the thing that I really liked was that there were just a bunch of different people from a lot of different businesses that were all in one location, and it's
Yeah.
almost like it's like a new marketplace, you
We
know.
have a lot of resources like that here in Fayetteville with the university, with our brewer entrepreneurship hub that people
Right.
can use. Now the Small Business Development Technology Center has a huge space with private offices that people can lease on short terms, or so there's more and more of these things that are becoming available by the quote startup community and sort of small business support community that are either entirely or mostly funded by public sources. So I just don't know, Randy. It's hard to say. Definitely the situation is going to change. There will be new opportunities, and it's hard to say what they are. But if I was a firm right now, I'd be thinking real hard about what they're going to be, and I'd be talking to those clients, get their thoughts, and I'd be responding, not just saying, we should add healthcare, and then that goes away for another 2 months and come back together. We should add healthcare, and then a year goes by. I said last year we should add healthcare. You can't operate like that.
Yeah.
Get on it, find somebody, make an offer, get them on board, try them out. If they don't work out, get somebody else. I mean, start acting a whole lot faster. You
Yeah.
don't have this luxury, these long time horizons to ramp up or cut back. It's just not. You can't operate like that. I saw some tweet from some guy. It really got my juices flowing. He's like a former military slash entrepreneur slash TEDx speaker. And he's telling people, don't act on those ideas. Entrepreneurs, don't act on those ideas you had in the night. Come back together, talk with your employees, and put together a plan over the next 90 to 120 days to implement. Like, bullshit, don't act on those ideas. What the heck? 90 or 120. If you look at the data out there, most businesses will be gone in 90 to 120 days if they don't act. I
Right.
mean, come on.
Yeah.
I love these one person operations who've only worked in the government, who then tell us all how to run businesses with employees. They've never experienced it.
Are you talking about solopreneurs?
I,
So,
I,
yeah.
I never liked that term either.
I know,
Okay.
I know, I
If
know,
there
I
were
know.
such a thing, it'd be you, though, because you have
Right,
your hand in so many different pies.
right,
And I'll tell
right.
you, that's the way I want to operate myself today, because I
Yeah.
don't really want to deal with employees. But that doesn't mean, that neither of us has ever worked in a sizable organization as a
Right.
manager. I mean,
Yeah.
anyway, it just drives me crazy. there's so many of these experts out there that are telling us what to do. And it's, we don't have answers, all the answers. There are some things though that make sense, like cut your costs down, kick up your marketing and selling activities. I don't think anybody can debate the merits of those two,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And I guess if there was ever an opportunity for you to kind of let go some dead weight, if there ever was some,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is the time to do it. As hard as that sounds,
It is.
it is very difficult, but the your I think your loyalty is to your people, and you can't be loyal to your people if you can't allow the company to survive.
Yeah. If the whole ship sinks, then everybody
Forget about it.
dies.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So, and
mean,
you,
it's unfortunate, but it's true.
yeah, I always think of the image of the band people playing on the Titanic as it was sinking, right? And
Yeah.
they held tight. I mean, they were playing in the movie. You could see them playing like literally to the last minute, and you don't want to be that last person holding the fiddle, and it's like, and then it's too
No.
late. So, I want to, because I really appreciate you taking the time today to sit with us and kind of share your thoughts. I want to kind of just because I know that some people have this question, or maybe they're dealing with this when it comes to identifying and or finding like a really high quality candidate that you might want to bring on board. Would your advice be to hold off on making any really strategic hires right now, or would you encourage a firm that if it fits right, or if it looks right, and if it's someone that's ideally what you're looking for, that you shouldn't delay hiring them just because of where we are currently in the marketplace?
I'd say you may need to act right now. It depends on who they are and what they do. If they're pure overhead and they're not related to marketing and selling, I might think twice about it.
Right,
If there's
right.
somebody that brings a new client base to us, or a new service that our clients desperately need, or skill that we need to be able to deliver on stuff that we've already got, of course I want to add them. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I don't think you can just have a blanket, well, we don't hire anybody now. If you're smart, that means we're not going to adapt at all to any changes in the marketplace.
right.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a great time. And, maybe another 6 months from now, it'll be an even better time. Be
Yeah.
looking at these things. It may be a great time to buy companies in 6 or 12 months. Maybe a
Yeah.
great time to buy companies in 3 months. I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
you think there's going to be some consolidation in the industry with some firms kind of joining forces?
Absolutely. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Whenever you have these situations, look, there are a lot of companies in this business that are very thinly capitalized. They owe more on their accounts payable and other long-term obligations than they've got in cash and accounts receivable. They're going to be in trouble. Okay. They're going to need somebody to bail them out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Owners may not be willing to take on more debt. They may not be able to get any more debt. They may not have the resources themselves to pump capital into the company. So no question, there are going to be firms out there, and there will be bargains for the people who are brave enough and have some dry powder left over, who are smart about how they're running their businesses now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've talked with buyers recently who are big buyers, and they're telling me that. I
Yeah.
mean, they're they're not going to slow down. They're going to accelerate their buying in
Yeah.
the next couple of years. That's what they see.
Yeah, I totally agree, and this is not even in the same market, but I've personally been looking at some small businesses locally that I'm like, man, this might actually be a good time to possibly buy something because there are going to be some people that are going to be looking to pivot or wanted to make an exit. I saw a statistic some time ago that only two out of 11 small business owners are ever able to successfully sell their company. Does that sound about right to you?
Doesn't strike me as odd at all. When you look at how many go out of business
Yeah, yeah,
or just simply shut down, two out of
yeah,
seven, if anything, that seems fairly high.
yeah. So,
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I've looked at a lot of local small businesses myself. And so I'd be curious to talk with you about some of what you're finding. And I could tell you some of what we saw when we were doing it.
yeah,
Most of the
yeah,
stuff we saw was overpriced relative to the money the owners were able to make and the time they invested in it.
yeah,
And they all had needs for money to be spent on them on top of that because they weren't investing in the stuff that they needed to invest in. That's
yeah,
a huge generalization, but I'd say it holds true pretty much on most of what we saw.
Yeah.
The other thing is just the danger of getting into something you don't really know.
Right.
There's a lot of risk with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that same could be said for design firms trying to buy into a different space, a different vertical within our design industry that you don't know and don't really have a full handle on, but you figure you're buying into something that will open up a new door to you. It may or may not if you don't do your homework.
yeah, and you don't get the right person or persons
Right.
for
Right.
sure. That it's so critical.
Yeah. Well, last thoughts, Mark. Any last thoughts that you would have to share with folks out there that, like you said, I mean, you used the D word. I wasn't going to go there. I was using the R word for recession, but you used the D word for depression, and I mean that has to wake some people up. I mean, it is
Mm.
what it is, and I am under no illusion that things are ever going to be the same because they're not. Before I get your answer, I was telling somebody the other day that I could remember distinctly hearing my grandparents talk about things before 1930, so before the stock market crash, and then what things were like during the Depression, and then what things were like afterwards. And I think it's important for us to understand that, we'll never go back to the way things were. It's just
Yeah.
going to be, we'll have a new reality. And what that new reality is a lot of it is dependent upon those people listening to this podcast. If they decide to take the reins and really get control of the situation to the best of their ability, they could end up really doing well. But I remember my grandfather saying very specifically, there was everybody got their pound of flesh taken from them during the Depression, but we came out stronger because of it. And it's also, honestly, the Depression came 10 years before World War II, and we needed that punch in the face to allow us to even endure what we had to endure for the 5 years of World War II in the 40s. So you almost think of it, it's like, man, it's what are we being set up for something? But
I know. I just hope we don't have to have a war to get out of
well,
this.
yeah, no, and I'm certainly not suggesting that, but I am suggesting that our tireless resolve and ingenuity and workmanship and ability to ideate and come up with new things was born out of that depression moment. That
No,
depression,
I hear you. This
yeah,
is going to be good in the end, other than the people who die
yeah,
or
no,
people who
absolutely,
lose people. I mean, obviously, that's a real problem, and nothing else compares to that. But from an economic standpoint, I do think that you know, I hate this. Don't take this the wrong way, but I think we've been living a little too large. Myself included. I mean, should we be going out to dinner 5 nights a week? I mean,
no,
really, it just
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. I
yeah,
mean, you don't need to live like that. It's just too much waste, too much stuff just flowing through the system, too much distraction, not paying attention to what's really important. And so all those things I think will change now. And we are all going to have to work harder and longer to get out of this situation we're in. And
yeah,
there's no assurance that as individuals we're not going to suffer tremendous financial hardship as a result of all this. I think it's entirely possible. We're
yeah,
all going to be making less. We're all going to be living on less. I mean, you've been a big advocate of that for a long time. I know you, and
yeah,
you're very thrifty.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like you just started doing that after this deal hit. I mean, you know,
no,
I don't want to say I could predict this because I couldn't predict what happened. I never thought we'd have a pandemic, global pandemic. But I will say I have thought for the last 2 years we're going to have a recession.
hmm,
And I'm so thankful that we sold all of our apartments and student oriented condos and apartments because I wouldn't want to be in that business today. I mean, that was before the pandemic. And so, you got to pay attention. I mean, if people are too disconnected from what's really going on in the world, then unfortunately, I don't think that ignorance is bliss. I think it really, you're not learning and adapting as you should to changes that,
yeah,
like I said, you couldn't see this coming, but you could see a recession coming.
yep,
I don't
yep,
think you had to be a genius to see that.
yeah,
Stock market's inflated, companies' PE ratios completely out of whack, you know. So we'll get back to some reality. And human nature being what it is, we'll probably make all the same mistakes all over again. And the cycle will repeat,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Hopefully
It,
we'll have some safeguards in place, but yes, absolutely. We tend to look at ourselves in the mirror and then forget what we look like. So
I'm telling you, and we don't do anything until we're forced into it.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
sad reality of it,
absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah,
But times will get better and times will get worse.
man.
I mean,
Well,
it's just that's life.
it is. It is
You,
for sure. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
you can either text me or call me at 508-380-0469, or you can email me at mzweig, Zweig, at zweiggroup.com.
There you have it. Well, man, Mark, thank you so much as always. Personal friend, but I really appreciate more that your understanding and filter of this industry and the lens that you see it through. So thank you so much for taking time to be with us today on the Zweig Letter podcast.
I appreciate you too, Randy.
Thank you. Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode of the Zweig Letter podcast. My good friend and mentor and just all around great guy, Mark Zweig. He had a lot to share today. I hope that this particular episode was helpful for you. I hope that you got a lot out of it. As always, I would certainly recommend that you go back and take a look at the Zweig Letter. It's a subscription-based newsletter that comes out once a week for the design industry. You can go to zweiggroup.com and just click on the Zweig Letter link on there to subscribe for free. You can hear everything that Mark is talking about on a regular basis, as well as so many other industry professionals that have a lot of really great information to share. If you need help or if you need anything with regard to any type of consulting, especially in this difficult time, please reach out. Just visit zweiggroup.com. And check in with any of the Zweig Group leadership. They'll be more than happy to help you out. You can always reach me, R. Wilburn at zweiggroup.com. If I can help you out in any way, I'll be more than happy to do that. But that's all we have for this week. We will be back with a new episode very soon of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I'm Randy Wilburn, and I will see you soon.